Singaporean marry foreigner. What property can we buy in Singapore? It's that time of our lives, isn't it? Getting married. Or at least, thinking about getting married. When you reach that age, you see your friends, classmates, colleagues, people around our age getting married one by one. Now, what if our significant other is a foreigner? You might be thinking, "Aiyah, must be those Singaporean men going overseas to look for wives lor." They go PRC lah, Batam, Siam Teo to look for Siam Bu, or sometimes even buying Vietnamese wives. Then the Sinky guys be like, "Hey, don't anyhow say ho. Come, look at this chart from CNA." As you can see, the pink portion representing foreign wives has been quite consistent. But the blue portion representing foreign husbands has been increasing, and about two-folds from 20 years ago.
Does that mean?
Regardless, from the next chart, also from CNA, we can see that 1 in 4 marriages involves a Singaporean and a foreigner. So let's talk about what properties can we buy as a Singaporean and foreigner couple. And the options you have should your foreign spouse becomes a PR, permanent resident. In sunny Singapore, there are basically 3 main categories of residential properties. Number 1, the HDB, which is also known as public housing. Number 2, condominiums, in short, condo. And number 3, landed properties, also known as Jiak Hong Chu. Can you make a guess what's the percentages of people living in each? The undisputed champion is HDB. It's about 80, 15 and 5. You may be thinking, so many people living in HDB, it must be cheaper and better. Actually, it's just where the majority of residents live. But one fact that you have to be very sure is that public housing, or HDB, is only for citizens. And we have to be legally married with our foreign spouses. So, not this one. You may get married overseas, it doesn't have to be in Singapore. But for HDB to accept your marriage certificate must be accepted by the government of the country. It can be any of the 4 main languages here, otherwise it has to be translated and notarized. Group 1, Singaporean and foreigner. Your first question might be, can BTO or not? BTO are also public housing, but they are new HDB flats, which basically means when you subscribe for it, you have to wait a couple of years before it completes building and you get the keys. Why are people so fixated on BTOs despite having to wait so long? Well, because they are cheaper and highly subsidized. Unfortunately, BTOs are not ideal for mixed nationality couples. If you have a foreign spouse, you are only allowed to buy 2-room BTO flexi flats and in a non-mature estate. The non-mature estates are listed here. Hano, after waiting so many years for a BTO, you can only get a 2-room and in a non-mature estate. How is that enough if you want to have a bigger family? That's why in my opinion, there are only 3 viable options for mixed nationality couples. The 3 options are HDB resale flats, executive condominiums, and private properties. First, let's talk about probably the main option for most. The HDB resale flat is when you buy a flat from the open market. That means it is not a new flat. There's also no income ceiling, which means you can earn a lot and still buy an HDB resale flat. This is unlike the BTO where you have an income ceiling. However, you might not be able to get some grants due to a high income. Of course, you shouldn't have another property, especially an overseas property. If you do, please dispose it.
But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you.
Now, the scheme that we are going to focus on is called Non-Citizen Spouse Scheme, NCS. Of course, one of you must be a Singapore citizen. Your foreign spouse must have one of the valid passes. The Singapore citizen would be the homeowner, and the non-foreign spouse would be the occupier. Because HDB is for Singapore citizens. What else is for Singapore citizens? Yes, grants. The NCS scheme grants. The NCS scheme grant is very similar to the singles grant. Because only one of us is a Singaporean, so we are treated like a single. And that means our grants are half of the Singaporean and Singaporean couples. Still, half is better than none. Let's take a look at the grants available. The first grant is very straightforward. It's called the singles grant. You must be married and at least 21 years old. You can get either 25,000 for 2 to 4 room resale flats or 20,000 for 5 room or bigger resale flats. The total income of you and your spouse must not exceed 14,000. Please note that you have to be a first timer in order to get the grant. In other words, you haven't bought a BTO before and you have not taken any grants. On top of the singles grant, you may also get the EHG, Enhanced CPF Grant. To qualify for EHG, you will also have to be 21 years old at least, but additionally, you must have been working for 12 months continuously. Half of your household income should be under 4,500. Then the amount of grant you will qualify for depends on your income. It is between 2,500 to 40,000. The lower your income, the more grant you can get. Let's assume you earn 2,000 a month for the last 12 months and that your foreign spouse earns 3,000 a month for the last 12 months. In total, that would be 5,000 a month. And when you divide it by 2, you will get 2,500. That would be your average monthly household income. And your EHG would be 22,500. The last grant you might get is the Proximity Housing Grant, PHG. Remember, for NCS scheme, we are considered singles, so you have a chance to get 10,000 more in grant if you live near your parents, or 15,000 if you live with your parents. Let's do an easy case study. Xavier bought an HDB 3-room resale at 350,000. Assuming he earns 2,000 and his spouse earns 3,000, their average household income would be 2,500. These are the grants he would get if he lives close to his parents. Since Xavier has been working for a few years, his CPF ordinary account has 50,000, and he was able to get a loan from the bank or HDB of about 242,000. That means he has no cash portion that he has to come up with. And this would be the case if he doesn't have to pay any COV, cash over valuation. COV is another long topic that we will talk about another time when we go in depth of resale hunting. Lastly, you will still need to prepare other little expenses such as legal fees, stamp duty, and probably renovation fees. I thought this table from Dollar & Cents provides a very good summary for citizens with foreign spouses. You might have remembered there are 2 more so-called viable options. I could sum them up as one. The ECs that you could buy are 10-year-old condominiums. As for private properties, yes, you could buy a private condominiums. Could be new launches, under construction condominiums, or completed condominiums. Generally, you are not allowed to buy a landed property. It depends on one's economic contribution to Singapore. However, landed properties in Sentosa Cove are open to Singaporeans with foreign spouses, and also just foreigners. Now, one last beat. What if your foreign spouse got his or her PR? If you haven't bought any flat, congratulations, your options just expanded. you may get a larger BTO. You can consider new executive condominiums. You can also consider resale flats, and you'll get more grants than singles. Last but not least, the private sector is still open for you. I haven't mentioned the EC a lot because you need to have at least a Singaporean and a PR. A new EC is basically a sandwich, or in local context, a rojak flat. It is public and also a private housing. It is catered for the Singaporeans who think that BTO isn't good enough, or they couldn't qualify for a BTO due to an income ceiling cap, but still thinks that the private condominiums are too expensive. The EC is unique because after 5 years, you can sell to Singaporean and PR couples. And after 10 years, it is a private condominium, which means you can sell to any foreigners. The EC is usually priced somewhere between the HDB and private condominiums, but it has facilities very similar to a private condominium. What happens if your spouse gets his or her PR after you bought a resale flat under the non-citizen spouse scheme? Don't worry, the PR is always a good news. You may apply for top-up grants. In the case of Xavier, his top-up grants will be as follows if his spouse gets a PR. If your only wish is to get a BTO and you don't want that 2-room BTO under the non-citizen spouse scheme, you still have an option. If you have a child who's a Singaporean or a PR, you could apply for a typical BTO under the public scheme.